They laughed at you, didn't they? Not a little chuckle. No, I'm talking about that deep, dismissive laugh. The kind that says, you really think you can do this? Good. Because one day, that same laugh is going to echo in your mind, not as pain, but as fuel. Pain has a way of arriving uninvited, often at the exact moment you begin to believe in yourself. It shows up through rejection, through mockery, through those quiet looks people give when they don't take you seriously. And when they laughed at you, it probably didn't just sting, it cut deep. It made you question your ability, your worth, even your direction. But here's the truth most people never realize: pain is not your enemy. Pain is a signal. It's proof that you're stepping outside the comfort zone where nothing grows. The very discomfort you're feeling is the beginning of transformation. It means you've dared to attempt something that others are too afraid to try. What separates people is not whether they feel pain. Everyone does. The difference lies in how they respond to it. Some people shrink. They retreat back into safety, convincing themselves that maybe the crowd was right, maybe the dream was too big. But others, the rare ones, do something different. They lean into that pain. They let it sharpen them instead of soften them. They take every laugh, every insult, every moment of doubt, and they turn it into something usable. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? They ask, how can this make me stronger? That shift in mindset is where power is born. Pain, when understood correctly, becomes a form of energy. Think about it. Those moments that hurt the most are the ones you remember the longest. They stay with you. They echo in your mind when things get hard, when motivation fades, when quitting feels like the easiest option. And in those moments, pain becomes a reminder. It tells you you've already come too far to stop now. It fuels your discipline when your emotions are unstable. It pushes you forward when your confidence is low. Pain doesn't disappear, but it evolves. It transforms into drive, into resilience, into a quiet fire that refuses to go out. There's also something powerful about the clarity that pain brings. When everything is easy, you don't question much. You don't dig deep. But when you're hurt, when you're doubted, when you're pushed to your limits, you start to see things clearly. You understand who supports you and who doesn't. You recognize distractions that were holding you back. You become more focused, more intentional, more aware of what truly matters. Pain strips away illusions. It forces you to confront reality. And in doing so, it gives you the opportunity to rebuild yourself stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose. But turning pain into power is not automatic. It requires choice. Every single day, you have to decide what you're going to do with what you've been given. You can carry your pain as a burden, letting it weigh you down, define you, and limit you. Or you can carry it as fuel, something that drives you forward with purpose and intensity. This is not about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about refusing to let it control your direction. It's about taking ownership of your story, even when parts of it are unfair. Because the truth is, your circumstances don't determine your outcome, your response does. And when you consistently choose to use your pain as power, something remarkable begins to happen. You become stronger than the opinions that once shook you. You become more disciplined than the distractions that once pulled you away. You become more confident, not because life got easier, but because you got tougher. The laughter that once hurt you loses its weight. It becomes background noise, irrelevant and distant. What once felt like a setback becomes the foundation of your strength. And in that process, you realize something profound. Pain didn't break you. It built you into someone who cannot be easily stopped. It's easy to let negativity turn into resentment. When people laugh at you, doubt you, or dismiss your dreams, the natural reaction is to feel anger. That anger can sit inside you, growing quietly, turning into bitterness over time. But bitterness is heavy. It slows you down. It clouds your thinking. And if you carry it long enough, it starts to shape your identity in ways that don't serve you. That's why the goal isn't to resent those who doubted you. It's to remember them. There's a difference. One drains you, the other drives you. Remembering is powerful because it keeps you aware without making you emotional. You don't forget what was said. You don't erase the moments that hurt. Instead, you store them carefully, almost like reminders of where you started and what you had to push through. Those memories become reference points. They show you how far you've come and how much stronger you've become. But you don't relive them with anger. You revisit them with purpose. You use them as quiet motivation, not loud frustration. Resentment, on the other hand, ties you to the very people you're trying to rise above. It keeps you mentally stuck in those moments where you were underestimated. It gives others control over your emotional state, even when they're no longer present. And that's a dangerous place to live, because as long as you're focused on proving them wrong out of anger, you're still reacting to them. True growth happens when your focus shifts inward, when your drive comes from your own vision, not from someone else's opinion. There's strength in staying calm, in refusing to let negativity dictate your behavior. When you choose not to resent, you protect your energy. You keep your mind clear and your intentions sharp. You're able to think long-term instead of reacting in the moment. And that clarity gives you an advantage. While others get caught up in emotions, you stay focused on progress. You move with purpose, not impulse. You build something meaningful, not just something reactive. At the same time, remembering keeps you grounded. It reminds you that success didn't come easily, that your journey had resistance. It prevents you from becoming complacent. When things start going well, those memories bring you back to reality. They remind you of the work, the discipline, and the resilience it took to get where you are. They keep you humble, but also hungry, because you know what it feels like to be doubted. And you never want to return to that place again. And over time, something interesting happens. The faces you once remembered with pain begin to lose their emotional weight. They become part of your story, not the center of it. You no longer feel the need to prove anything to them. You don't carry anger, and you don't seek validation. You simply move forward stronger and more focused than before. You remember not to hold on to the past, but to honor the growth it created within you. Doubt has a voice, and it doesn't whisper. It speaks loudly, especially when you're trying to do something meaningful. It shows up in your mind before you even begin, asking questions that sound logical but are rooted in fear. What if you fail? What if they're right? What if you're not good enough? And when other people laughed at you, that external doubt quickly became internal. Their voices blended with yours, creating hesitation, slowing you down before you even had a chance to prove yourself. But here's the truth. Doubt doesn't disappear by thinking your way out of it. It fades when you move. It weakens when you act. Action is the most powerful response to uncertainty. Not words, not explanations, not arguments, just consistent, focused effort. You don't need to convince anyone that you're capable. You don't need to defend your vision or explain your goals. Every hour you put in, every step you take, every small improvement you make, those become your answers. Because in the end, people don't believe what you say, they believe what you show. And action is something they can't ignore forever. There's also something deeply personal that happens when you choose action over hesitation. You begin to rebuild trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on what you said you'd do, no matter how small, you strengthen your confidence. You stop relying on motivation and start relying on discipline. And discipline is what carries you when emotions fluctuate. It keeps you moving on days when you don't feel ready, when doubt is loud, when progress feels slow. Action becomes your anchor. It keeps you grounded while everything else feels uncertain. The important thing to understand is that action doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. Too many people wait for the right moment, the perfect plan, or complete confidence before they begin. But those things don't come first. They are built through doing. You gain clarity by starting. You build skill by practicing. You develop confidence by showing up repeatedly, even when it's uncomfortable. Imperfect action will always take you further than perfect hesitation. Progress doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. And as you continue to act, something begins to shift, not just in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. The same person who once doubted their ability starts to recognize their growth. You notice the improvements, the discipline, the resilience you've built along the way. The doubt doesn't completely vanish, but it loses its authority. It no longer controls your decisions. It becomes background noise, something you hear but no longer obey. Eventually, your actions create results, and those results speak in a language that doubt cannot argue with. The laughter, the criticism, the skepticism, they all start to fade in the presence of consistent progress. You don't need to respond to negativity because your work already has. And in that moment, you realize something powerful. The best way to silence doubt was never to fight it with words. It was to outwork it day by day until it no longer had anything left to say. Most people only pay attention to what's visible. They see the results, the wins, the moments of recognition, but they don't see the process that made it possible. They don't see the early mornings when no one was watching, the late nights when quitting felt easier, or the countless hours spent improving in silence. When they laughed at you, they were reacting to what they could see at the time, a beginning, a rough draft, an unfinished version of your potential. What they didn't understand is that real growth doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows, where no applause exists. There's a certain kind of strength that is built when no one is cheering for you, when there's no validation, no encouragement, no immediate reward, only your own commitment keeping you going. That's where discipline takes shape. That's where your character is tested, because it's easy to work hard when people are watching. It's easy to stay motivated when you're getting praise. But when it's just you, your goals, and the quiet, when progress feels invisible, that's where real growth begins. That's where you prove to yourself that you don't need external approval to keep moving forward. Working in the shadows also protects your focus. When you're not constantly seeking attention or validation, you're able to direct all your energy toward improvement. You're not distracted by opinions, comparisons, or the pressure to perform for others. You move at your own pace, refining your skills, strengthening your mindset, and building something solid from the ground up. It's in this quiet space that you can make mistakes, learn from them, and grow without fear of judgment. The shadows give you room to evolve. There's also a level of patience that develops when you embrace unseen growth. You begin to understand that meaningful progress takes time. It's not instant, and it's not always noticeable from day to day. But just because growth is slow doesn't mean it's not happening. Like anything being built with intention, it requires consistency. Brick by brick, habit by habit, you're constructing something stronger than quick success could ever provide. And because it's built in silence, it's built to last. What makes this phase so powerful is that it prepares you for what's ahead when the moment finally comes, when your work starts to gain attention, when people begin to notice. You're not overwhelmed by it. You're ready. Because you've already done the hard part without recognition. You've already proven to yourself that you can endure, that you can stay committed even when no one believes in you. So when the spotlight does appear, it doesn't change you. It simply reveals what you've been building all along. And eventually, the same people who once overlooked you will only see the outcome. They'll call it talent, luck, or overnight success, not realizing the depth of effort behind it. But you'll know the truth. You'll remember the quiet days, the unseen struggles, the moments where no one clapped, but you kept going anyway. And that's what makes it meaningful, because your growth wasn't built for attention. It was built for strength. Distractions don't always come in obvious forms. Sometimes they sound like opinions. Sometimes they look like opportunities that don't align with your purpose. And sometimes they come disguised as doubt from others or even from within. When people laughed at you, they were trying, knowingly or not, to pull your attention away from your vision and toward their perception of reality. And if you're not careful, you can get caught in that shift, spending more time reacting to what others think than building what you truly want. Your vision is fragile in the beginning, not because it's weak, but because it's new. It hasn't been proven yet. It hasn't produced results. And because of that, it's easy for outside noise to influence it. One comment can make you hesitate. One moment of comparison can make you question your path. That's why protecting your focus is essential. You have to treat your vision like something valuable, something that requires your full attention, your consistency, and your belief, even when there's no evidence yet to support it. Focus is not just about working hard, it's about working in the right direction. You can put in effort every day, but if your attention is scattered, your progress will be limited. Staying focused means knowing what matters and letting go of what doesn't. It means saying no to distractions, even when they're tempting. It means resisting the urge to constantly check what others are doing and instead staying committed to your own path. Because the moment you start measuring your progress against someone else's journey, you lose clarity. There will be moments when your focus is tested. Times when things don't go as planned, when progress feels slow, when results are delayed. In those moments, it's easy to lose sight of why you started. Doubt creeps in, and suddenly the voices that once laughed at you begin to sound convincing. But this is where your discipline matters most, because focus is not about feeling certain all the time. It's about continuing even when certainty is absent. It's about trusting your direction, even when the destination isn't fully visible yet. Another challenge to your focus is the desire for immediate validation. In a world where everything is shared and seen, it's easy to feel like your work only matters if others notice it. But real progress doesn't always come with recognition. Sometimes the most important steps you take will go unseen. And if you rely on attention to stay motivated, you'll lose momentum when it's not there. That's why your vision has to be bigger than approval. It has to be something you believe in deeply enough to pursue, even in silence. When you stay focused on your vision, something begins to align within you. Your actions become more intentional. Your decisions become clearer. You waste less energy on things that don't serve your purpose. And over time, that consistency creates momentum. You start to see progress, not because you chased results, but because you stayed committed to the process. And while others may still question or misunderstand your path, it no longer affects you the same way, because your focus isn't on them. It's on where you're going and who you're becoming along the way. There's a natural urge to respond when people doubt you, to explain yourself, to defend your vision, to prove in words that you're capable of more than they think. But words have limits. They can be ignored, misunderstood, or dismissed entirely. That's why the most powerful response is not something you say, it's something you build. Success doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It simply stands there, undeniable, making every doubt irrelevant without needing a single sentence. When they laughed at you, they formed an opinion based on what they saw in that moment. Maybe you were just starting. Maybe you didn't have the skills yet. Maybe your idea seemed unrealistic to them. But opinions are temporary. They're shaped by incomplete information. Success changes that. It replaces assumption with evidence. It turns "you can't" into "you did." And once results are visible, there's no room left for debate, because success speaks in outcomes, and outcomes are hard to deny. The journey to that point, though, is where most people give up, not because they lack ability, but because they become too focused on the noise around them. They try to respond too early, to prove themselves before they've actually built something. But success requires patience. It asks you to stay quiet while you're still growing, to resist the urge to seek validation before you've earned it. It demands that you invest time and effort consistently, even when no one is paying attention. Because when your response is built on results, it carries far more weight. There's also a deeper level of satisfaction that comes from letting your success speak for you. It's not driven by revenge or ego. It's driven by fulfillment. You're not achieving something just to silence others. You're achieving it because it matters to you. And that distinction is important. Because when your motivation is internal, your progress becomes sustainable. You're not dependent on others' reactions to feel accomplished. You measure success by your own growth, your own standards, your own journey. At a certain point, something shifts. The same people who once doubted you may begin to change their tone. Some might offer praise. Others might act as if they always believed in you. And while that might feel strange, it also reveals something important. People respond to results, not intentions, not promises, not potential, but proof. And when you've done the work, when you've stayed consistent long enough to create something real, their opinions no longer carry the same weight. Because you're no longer defined by what they think, you're defined by what you've done. In the end, success doesn't just silence critics. It transforms you. It builds confidence that isn't based on words, but on experience. It gives you a sense of control over your path, knowing that your effort can produce real outcomes. And most importantly, it frees you from the need to respond at all. Because when your life becomes the answer, there's nothing left to explain. So let them laugh, let them doubt, let them misunderstand you. Because while they're talking, you're working. While they're watching, you're building. While they're judging, you're becoming. And one day, without warning, everything changes. The same faces that once laughed will go silent. The same voices that doubted will have nothing left to say. Not because you argued, not because you proved them wrong with words, but because you showed them with results. So keep going, stay focused, stay hungry. And when the moment comes, you won't need to say a single thing.